The doorbell rang at 11:13 p.m., like a punch to the gut of the house. It was either somebody in trouble, or somebody who needed to be taught some manners, I figured. I sat down my nightcap and went to check the door. I couldn't see anybody through the window and the door, so I opened it up. There was nobody there. I took a few steps outside into the night and looked around. There was nobody there. I heard something crinkle under my foot and looked down to see an envelope there. I bent down and picked it up. I opened the envelope and there inside were some Polaroid pictures of my 4-year-old daughter sleeping in her room. In one of them, she was wearing the new doctor pajamas that I had helped her get into earlier that night. In others, she was wearing different pajamas. The photos looked like they had been taken from outside, through the window of my daughter's second-story room. I dropped the pictures onto my front steps, as my tired mind worked out what exactly I was seeing, and panic exploded in all of my nerves. I scooped up the pictures again and jumped inside, closing the door behind me and slamming the deadbolt home. And then I rushed up the stairs to check on Ashlyn. She was snoring softly. I went over to her window and looked out. There was an extension ladder leaning against the side of the house, right next to the window. I double-checked that the window was locked, and then left Ashlyn's room and went to check on my wife. Sasha was also snoring, sprawled out onto the bed asleep. I hurried downstairs into the kitchen, where my cell phone was charging. There was a notification for a text message from an unknown number. It read, "I've jammed your signals and cut your cables. There's no way out. There's only me, and soon I'll be inside. Mr. Knight." I closed the message and dialed 911. I strained to listen as the blood pumped and swirled around my head, but I didn't hear anything. And then I did hear something. The sound of glass shattering upstairs, where my wife and kids were sleeping. I yanked my phone off the charger and ran upstairs. "Honey?" My wife called from our bedroom. I rushed in. "What are you doing? Why are you making so much noise? You woke me up. I knocked over my water." I turned on the light and saw a broken water glass on the floor next to Sasha's nightstand. "There's somebody here," I said as calmly as I could. "Look." I tossed the Polaroids onto the bed, and then I pulled up the text message back on my phone and tossed that on there too. Sasha blinked the sleep out of her eyes and looked at the first of the pictures, and then the text message, and then she looked up at me with frightened eyes. "Is this real?" she asked. "It is." She was out of the bedroom in a second, rushing past me. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Our child," she said. "What are you doing?" We both ran into Ashlyn's room, where she was still sleeping, oblivious to any kind of danger. "There's a ladder outside," I whispered. "That's how we got up and took the photos." "You've tried 911?" Sasha asked, walking over to the window. I saw her look out and frown, her face dimly lit in the moonlight. "There's no ladder here." "Yes," I said. He's jammed the cell signal somehow. And then I looked out the window myself. The ladder was gone, and there was a ladder here. He must have moved it. I heard more glass shattering from our bedroom, followed by a loud thump. I looked desperately around Ashlyn's room for a weapon, cursing myself for not grabbing a knife from the kitchen, and cursing myself even harder for not owning a gun. What do we do now? I heard heavy footsteps getting closer. He was in the hallway between Ashlyn's room and the stairwell. We were trapped. My mind screamed in animal fear as I ran over and locked the door to the room. "We have to jump out the window," said Sasha. "I'll go first, and then you drop Ashlyn down to me, and then you come." Before I could respond, Sasha had already flung the window open and was halfway out. "Now," she said, as the slow footsteps thunked their way closer. And then she was gone from sight. I didn't think about what I was doing. I scooped Ashlyn up from her bed. She mumbled something as she started to wake up. I carried her to the window and looked down. Sasha was standing down there, reaching her arms up. "Do it," she screamed. I dropped my child out the window. I watched her fall into the night, helplessly, from a distance that could easily kill her if she hit the ground the wrong way. I heard her scream in terror as she fell, and then Sasha had Ashlyn in her arms. The footsteps stopped right outside of the door, and the doorknob started to rattle. I jumped out of the window. As I landed on the grass, an explosion of pain shot up my leg. "Get to the car," I screamed to my family. I heard a loud crash come from up above, and I looked. A moment later, I saw a head emerge from the window and looked down. The head was covered in a black ski mask, and then it was gone from sight. I hobbled behind my family around the house to the driveway. There is a spare key under the car in a magnetic box, and by the time I turned the corner, Sasha was already reaching around for it with one hand, while the other arm was wrapped around Ashlyn, who was wailing in horror and confusion. When I got close enough, I saw that all of the tires were deflated. Sasha pulled the box out and slipped the lid off. She unlocked the doors and got in the back seat with Ashlyn, just as I had finally reached the car. I got in the driver's seat and reached back for the keys. As I put them in the ignition, I looked up to see the front door of our house wide open. A man was standing there, dressed all in black, and holding a massive axe. I started the car and backed out of the parking spot as the man took a step forward. The car thumped up and down as it rode on 4 flat tires. I got it turned around and started heading up our long dirt driveway. I tossed my phone back to Sasha. "Keep trying 911. I shouted over Ashlyn's cries. "Now, Ashlyn, I know that this is very scary, but everything is going to be okay. You have to be very quiet now, because Mama has to make a phone call." Okay." Ashlyn quieted down to a whimper. In the rearview mirror, I saw her helpless face soaked in tears. Sasha was able to get through to 911, just as we came to the massive tree that was lying down across our driveway. I heard her explain the situation with amazing calm as I broke down in total fear. I got out of the car, walked over to the tree and tried mindlessly to push it out of the way. It was no good. Even with the three of us pushing, it would be no good. I heard the gravel crunch from somewhere off behind me. I got back into the car and I drove straight into the tree, but that was no good either. The car had no traction. I heard the wheels grind as they tried to spin under the weight of the car. Sasha was still on the phone with the 911 operator. Help was on the way, but not fast enough. "Stay here and keep the doors locked," I said. "Where are you going, Daddy?" asked Ashlyn. "Please don't leave." "I'll be right back," I said, popping the trunk. "I promise, kiddo. Hey, I love you." And then I got out of the car and rooted around the trunk for a tire wrench. The footsteps were getting closer. They were almost right on us. I found the wrench and spun around. The man was standing a few feet away now, holding the axe. "The police are coming," I told him, trying to steady myself as I lifted the wrench. "I'm not worried about that," said the man. "I'm Mr. Knight. I have a way of disappearing before the pigs arrive to root around." "What do you want?" I asked. "Anything you want. Just leave." "Well, I'll tell you the situation I'm in," said Mr. Knight. "I've recently found the perfect wife, devoted to me in every way. I thought that it would make me happy, and it has. But something's missing from our family. And with the world the way it is these days, well, it's just too cruel to bring another child into it. So, I'm going to take one that's already here. The one that's in the car right there. And then I'll be on my way." Mr. Knight took a step toward the car. I swung the wrench wildly and missed. And then I felt something hard hit my head. And then I was out. I woke up on the dirt to the glare of flashing blue light reaching up to the heavens. I lifted my head up and saw that one of the rear doors to the car was open. The glass in the window had been shattered. A cop was standing there, looking inside the car. I pushed myself up. "Don't move," said another cop. I looked over and saw that he was pointing a gun at me. "That's my family in there," I shouted. "Are they okay?" I took a pained step forward. "Sir, this is your last warning. Do not move." "Please," I said, tears starting to form in my eyes. "Please tell me if they're okay. My kid, Ashlyn, is she okay?" The cop who was looking in the car turned and studied me for a moment. He took a deep breath and then spoke. "Your child isn't here." Mr. Knight didn't leave traceable evidence beyond some generic boot prints, an extension ladder which was stolen from my nearest neighbor weeks ago, and my description of him as being of average height and build. An extensive search of the woods around my house turned up nothing. It's like he disappeared into the night. Please, he has my daughter. If anyone knows anything about someone calling himself Mr. Knight, please let me know.